Hello, friends. You are back in Mrs. Knifel's house, but this time you're in my kitchen. Here's my utility closet behind me. That's where my water heater is. And there's my clean dishes. So there's Mrs. Knifel's house, third room we've been in. So you were either watching this at school with our guest teacher, Miss Parrish, or you were watching this from home on an e-learning day. Regardless, we have got to finish this reading story. It has been a great story so far. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I've been enjoying it. I think that we've just learned so much from this story. It's been really awesome. I'm going to share my screen and then I will get started. So if you remember, we've been talking a ton about informational text the last few weeks. Informational text is to inform us, give us actual facts and examples about a topic or an event. This week, we're talking specifically about topics. The topic of hurricanes. Remember, they use subheadings to organize ideas. There's content area words, like words that are specific to science. There's also those text and graphic features, which include sidebars, maps, charts, all of those. So as we scroll through, let's do a teeny bit of review. Oh man, it's taking a while. Okay, so there's our title page. So remember, we talked about a hurricane's life cycle and how first is a tropical disturbance, then a tropical depression, and then a tropical storm, and then a hurricane. Disturbance is just, it forms over tropical waters and it's more like a rainstorm. And then during the depression, they start to group together a little bit more and it's a bigger system. Then it's the tropical storm, which is when miles per hour could get up to 38 miles per hour. And then as soon as it hits 74 miles per hour, it's that hurricane. And if you remember, hurricane, typhoon, cyclones all mean the same thing. It just depends on where they are geographically located in the United States. What other review should we do? Remember, we talked about how hurricanes start. We talked about how in the northern hemisphere they go counterclockwise, how in the southern hemisphere they go clockwise. We talked about why they go in a circle, because the wind's not just blowing straight, because the earth is always moving, so the winds go in a circle. We talked about this map that showed us the normal or the average path that hurricanes take, but we talked about how just because that's the normal or average path does not mean that is the only path they could take. Same with hurricane season. Just because hurricane season is from here to here doesn't mean there couldn't be one before or one after. It's just data shows us it is normally between these range. We talked about naming hurricanes and how they are first names, named first names by the place that they are. So in the United States, we have names that we've heard of before, where if there's a hurricane near Japan, it's going to be a first name that would be common in Japan. We saw a satellite image, and then we saw the plane image. We talked about how just because a hurricane's small doesn't mean it's always going to be, weak. Big ones can be the average one is up to 300 miles across. They can be even bigger than that. Just the average one is 300 miles across, which is like here to Indianapolis. Crazy. All right. Let me see. This was seriously the longest story ever. Oh yeah, then we split on a little bit too. That was before all those pages were about like how a hurricane forms and about the science behind hurricanes. And now this section, when we had this big red title, moved on to when a hurricane hits, where it actually hits land. We saw this picture of this giant tree being ripped out. We heard about those whipping winds and how everything can become dangerous, even a simple water bottle. If a full water bottle is going through the air at 100 miles an hour and that hits you, that's going to hurt. So all those types of things can be dangerous. We talked about how in our area, or how there's about 80 to 100 tropical storms developing around the world. So not even our area, but throughout the world in 1 year, there's about 80 to 100. That doesn't mean there can't be more. That doesn't mean there can't be less. It's just about. And we said over a 3-year period, according to this text, we get about 5 hurricanes here in the United States. And normally 2 of them are pretty big. So that doesn't mean we can't have more than 5. That doesn't mean we can't have less than 5. That's just the average. We saw this picture of Hurricane Andrew. Then we started talking about the cause and effects of hurricanes. Remember, a hurricane brings those high winds, those heavy damages, but it can also cause those huge storm surges like we talked about here. How they cause giant waves, which those giant waves can wash away roads, wash away buildings. So Hurricane cause, effect of that, storm surges. Also, effect of hurricanes, heavy rains. That causes flooding. And then that flooding could also cause landslides. So, cause, hurricane, effect, storm surges, effect, heavy rains, storm surges. Not storm surges, flooding, mudslides. All of those are effects of a hurricane. So it's not just the winds that are damaging. It is the rain and the storm surges that follow or that come with. Oh, wait, I should have talked about this earlier. Totally forgot before we continue on. Remember the middle of the hurricane. What's that, everyone? Eye. That's the eye of the hurricane where it's the most calm. It might seem like it's over, but it's not. And then surrounding that eye is the eye wall, which is the most powerful. So I always think that's so interesting that the weakest part and the most powerful part are touching. They are like right there together. Crazy. So we're going to continue on reading more about when hurricanes actually hit the land. And fun fact, not a fun fact, actually, like not fun fact, like the opposite of a fun fact. Hurricanes can also bring tornadoes. So they can bring storm surges, flooding. They can bring tornadoes. They can bring mudslides. Hurricanes can cause so much damage. So I'm starting reading at page 23. All right, line 23. Hurricanes can also bring tornadoes. These are small but very powerful storms. The winds of a tornado or twister rapidly swirl around in a tall cloud that is funnel-shaped. Some hurricanes do not produce any tornadoes. Others spawn and form many of them. Hurricane Katrina, for example, which if you remember happened in 2005, produced 62 tornadoes. The tornadoes that come with hurricanes are not usually as powerful as those that once formed during a thunderstorm in the Midwest states. So here where we live in Indiana, the Midwest states, we get some really powerful tornadoes. But could you imagine having 62 of them from one hurricane? That would be insane. And even if they're not as powerful as maybe the ones we get here, they're still going to have power. They're still going to cause damage. So that's another thing. Cause hurricane, affect tornadoes. I got to scroll down. Sorry. Shoot. There we go. What's the damage? Scientists use the Sapphire Simpson hurricane scale to rank the strength of a hurricane. So you've probably maybe heard on the news. If John's watching this, I know you have. You keep up with Louisiana and stuff. There's like different categories for hurricanes. So there's a certain scale. Like it's actually like based off something. Someone doesn't just wake up and be like, you know what, I think that's a category 3. Like there's science behind why there are different categories. So a scale rates a hurricane from category 1, which is least powerful, which makes sense. 1, smallest number, least powerful, to category 5, which is the most destructive. You want to be on camera? Oh, Mr. Kneifel said he doesn't want to see you guys, so sorry. But he's here. Everyone say hi to him. Hi, Mr. Kneifel.
You have kids?
No, I don't have kids. This is for tomorrow. So they're going to be watching this in class. All right. Mr. Kneifel says hi, even though he didn't want to be on camera. Because I'm filming this at 4:02 at my house, remember? So I'm filming this today. You're watching it tomorrow, either at home or at school. The rating is based on average wind speed. So each category also indicates the level of storm surge. Remember the big waves coming? And how much damage scientists think the hurricane will do. Hurricanes in category 3, 4, and 5 are considered major hurricanes. They can cause widespread damage to property, severe inland flooding. So that means like not just at the coast flooding, but even further inland flooding, and significant loss of life. Hurricanes can change categories as they gain or lose strength. So if I have a category 5 hurricane, but then it loses some strength, it can go down to a category 4. Or a hurricane that we think is going to be a category 1, maybe it picks up some extra speed as it's going on before it hits the coast, it can go up. So categories can change. This is what happened with Hurricane Katrina. Over the Gulf of Mexico, Katrina became a category 5, but it was down to category 3 by the time it reached the Louisiana-Mississippi border as it moved inland. So even though it was only a category 3 by the time it reached Mississippi and Louisiana, it was a devastating hurricane there. Hurricane Katrina was absolutely devastating. Remember, that name has been retired and everything. So could you imagine if it actually was a category 5 that hit that? That'd been crazy. Well, you guys weren't alive then, but I was. So now we have this thing at the bottom. It's a different color box. It's off to the bottom, not to the side. But what's this called, everyone? Hopefully you're saying it. Sidebar. This is a sidebar. It's giving us extra information about the tech. So what is the difference between a hurricane and a tornado? That's a great question. I would love to know. Hurricanes and tornadoes are both cyclones. That means powerful windstorms that spin in a circle, okay? So they both have the same general format. They spin in a circle, and they involve wind. But major differences. One difference is hurricanes form over an ocean. Most tornadoes form over land. Hurricanes are huge, often hundreds of miles wide. Remember, the average hurricane is 300 miles wide. Tornadoes are usually smaller, only about 4,000 to 5,000 feet wide. I think, so it's just a couple miles wide, because I'm pretty sure a mile is 1,600 meters. So that's even feet. So regardless, like a mile wide would be like the average tornado. Okay. It says my device has lost connection. Hopefully I don't lose this video. Hurricanes last up to 2 weeks, and tornadoes last, for just a few hours, luckily. But can you imagine? We talked about earlier that average hurricane is 3 to 14 days. So that's a really big difference, the amount of time that they actually last. And the last major difference is hurricane winds are not as powerful as tornado winds. Tornado winds typically blow 200 to 300 miles per hour. So hurricanes are not as powerful, but you have to think of all the things that come with a hurricane. You have those storm surges and those floods and those mudslides and tornadoes, where a tornado really just brings a thunderstorm and itself. It's not bringing a flood necessarily or a landslide necessarily. And now back to the regular part of the story, and we have the red line at the top, and that is another subtitle or subheading, giving us some more information. So, are hurricanes getting worse? I don't know. Does that mean that they were better a long time ago and now they're worse now? Good question. So I'm reading line 26 now. Some studies have shown that the number of Category 4 and Category 5 hurricanes has increased worldwide since 1980. Many scientists believe this increase in severe storms is due to global warming. They think our planet has been getting warmer. Since the warmer planet means warmer oceans, storms have become more powerful. Other scientists have a different idea as to why strong hurricanes have been recorded. They think scientists have gotten better at detecting and tracking hurricanes. Because technology has become so advanced, scientists track hurricanes better and warn people in advance. So, the data is showing that the hurricanes are getting worse, but there's two different theories on why they're getting worse. Is it because our planet's getting warmer? There's more warm water for that ocean to suck up? Or, can you open that and just close it? It's just beeping because it's ready. Thank you. Or there is it because the technology is better? We can see when it's coming. We can really decide which category it is. I don't know. Those are just the two theories. Feel free to make your own opinion on what you think. Sorry, Bristol's barking because my husband just left. He's going to go train Benji. So here's the Sapphire Simpson hurricane scale for us to look at. This is a chart. It's giving us data about which hurricane is which. So remember, 1 is the least, where wind speeds are 74 to 95 miles an hour. Storm surges only go up to about 5 feet. Category 2 is 96 to 110 miles an hour. Storm surges are 6 to 8 feet high. 3 is 111 to 130. Storm surges 9 to 12. Category 4 is 131 to 155 miles per hour. Can you imagine that? I've never been in a hurricane, thank goodness. Storm surges up to 18 feet high. And then Category 5 is any wind speed over 155 miles an hour. Sorry, Bristol's barking again. And the storm surge waves up to 18 feet or over, so greater than 18 feet. And then these are just some damages that often come along with it. So crazy. Obviously, if a hurricane is coming, we hope it's a Category 1, which is going to be the least, or maybe even a tropical storm, because that would be even better than a hurricane. We want things to be as less as possible, because the stronger they are, the more likely people are going to get hurt and things are going to be damaged. Here's another picture, and this says Jason Ross, top, and John Heilinger, I don't know how to say that, bottom, board up a beach house on September 6 in 2003 in Nags Head, North Carolina, as people prepare for a possible hit from Hurricane Isabel. So, I know, Isabel, that's your name, but it's not spelled the same. Anyways, that's something people do when they know a storm's coming. They board up their windows. That way nothing can break into them. And then they maybe go further inland to get away from the hurricane. So, that's just something people do. Here's another sidebar. It's off to the bottom. What should you do about your pets? So try to take your pets and pet supplies with you if you have to evacuate pets. They will likely die if they're left on their own. And that is a true fact. If you leave your dog in a cage at home and you leave because there's a hurricane coming, your pet will not be able to survive without you. So it's important that you come up with a plan for what you're going to do with your pets if there's an emergency. I can tell you, if Mrs. Knifel was in a hurricane, I'd be taking my dog wherever I'm taking me. Hurricane shelters will usually not take in pets. So looking for hotels outside the local area that will accept pets will help. Making a list of animal boarders or veterinarians' offices that will keep animals in emergency. And make sure your pets have collars and identification tags. That way, if they do get lost for some reason, you can hopefully get them back. I don't remember if it was President Bush or President Obama, but there is a president that made a law that we can use like the National Guard to go rescue pets and stuff and animals left in emergency. So if there is a hurricane and there's major flooding, we can use the National Guard and like service people, the Army who's ever helping aid everyone. We can use them to help rescue pets. It's like a pets not being left behind thing. That I'm trying to remember which president passed that, but it was definitely in my lifetime. But before, like, that their people left their pets, their pets were just left to die, where now we can actually use resources to also go help animals, which I think is fabulous. It's not fair for those animals to die. So what I'm trying to say is, if we have a natural disaster or you're planning for a natural disaster, make sure you ask your parents where you're taking your pet. Okay, that's important. Mrs. Knifel would be taking my pet if I had something. But I understand not every situation you can. So if you do have to leave them at home, make sure they have everything they need, or see if you can get them to a place like a veterinarian's office where maybe they're boarding up animals to keep them in a safe place. Okay? Pets are family too. Staying safe. So this is another section. So we had the very, very beginning section, which was just how we started. It was literally just the beginning of it. And then halfway through, we had about when it hits land. And now we have this same type of red thing. So it's giving us a third chunk of this story, staying safe. So an estimated 35 million people, or 12% of the people in the United States, live in the southern coastal region most threatened by Atlantic hurricanes. As the coastal population continues to grow, damages due to hurricane also increase. So it's a lot of people that can be at 12% of the population could be affected by hurricanes on a yearly basis. Scientists may not be able to prevent a hurricane from invading where people live. However, there are a number of things people can do to survive when a hurricane hits. Remember, we cannot prevent a natural disaster. If a hurricane's coming, there's absolutely nothing we can do about it. But there's ways to stay safe, and there's also ways to see it coming, with our satellite and stuff. So one thing we can do for a hurricane coming is have an emergency plan. And an emergency plan for any natural disaster is a good thing. Even we have an emergency plan at school for when there's a fire alarm going off. That's important. We know what to do in case of an emergency. So in case a hurricane hits, you and your family should have an emergency plan. There are probably special hurricane shelters nearby. Find out where they are and the fastest way to get to them. Are we going to have a hurricane shelter nearby? No, because we don't have hurricanes nearby. But that's besides the point. Somewhere down south, they do. At home, keep a disaster supply kit handy. You will need items to keep you safe in case the power goes out or your neighborhood is flooded. Emergency supplies can get you through a few days stuck in your home or a shelter until regular services are working again. The kit should include flashlight and batteries, battery-operated radio, and that's helpful because you have your phone, but if your phone dies because there's no power, you'd have a radio to be able to listen to the storm updates and stuff. First aid kit in case someone gets hurt. Emergency food and water. Of course, you can't drink the water coming from the hurricane. That wouldn't be clean water. Special items for baby, the elderly, and pets. Like a baby, you can have emergency food and water, but if you have an infant, you also have to have formula and stuff. You can't just feed it water. Same with the elderly. Elderly normally need special medications and stuff. That's another thing. Same with pets. It's going to need what it needs. Protective clothing such as rain gear and, of course, blankets, a way to stay warm. Listen for hurricane warnings on radio or TV and follow instructions. That's important. The National Hurricane Center also posts hurricane warnings on its website. If local officials say you should evacuate, leave as quickly as you can. That's sometimes how people end up getting hurt. They decide to stay where they are instead of evacuating when they're told to evacuate. Then they're kind of stuck in sticky situations. Now, obviously, maybe sometimes they couldn't get out, but if you can leave, it's always safest to leave. Follow what the National Hurricane Center is telling you, because they know what's happening better than we do, because they're the meteorologists. And we have our final page, and it says, if a hurricane is coming. So this is our final subtitle. It says, if a hurricane warning is issued for your area, damage to your home, you and your home, can be reduced if your family does the following. Nail boards over your home's windows, and that's to make sure the glass of your windows doesn't break through if something hits it. Pick up toys, bikes, and other objects outside the house. Put them where they will not blow around and cause damage. That's self-explanatory. Preventing flooding by placing sandbags around your house. You can trim bushes and tree limbs hanging over the house so they don't fall on your house. Inside the house, put strips of duct tape crisscross over windows to keep broken glass from flying around. That way, if the glass does break, it'll break onto the tape so it doesn't just shatter everywhere. Fill bathtubs, pails, and bottles of water for drinking and for washing. The water supply may be cut off or polluted. So even though it's flooding and there's tons and tons of water, that can cause damages to like cities' water system and plumbing and stuff. So the water may be cut off, and then you would need water to actually be able to drink. Unless there is an evacuation, stay inside your home. Do not leave, even if it seems like the storm is over. Remember, it could be the eye of the storm. A hurricane is not over until the second half of the storm has passed. Remember, big storm, calm in the center. You think it's over, but it's not. You have to get through the rest. Hurricanes are terrifying disasters, but learning about them can help you be prepared. Knowing where to go and what to do if a hurricane strikes can make a huge difference in keeping you and your family safe. And think about all we've learned so far. Here's a picture of vehicles leaving New Orleans ahead of Hurricane Katrina on August 28, 2005. So this means people were told, hey, get out of New Orleans, and some people were. Road signs often inform people of evacuation routes. So we don't normally see these here. I don't know if there was any evacuation routes in this area, but that's what a sign might look like, showing people where to go if there is a hurricane coming. Okay, so hopefully you guys enjoyed that and learned a lot. I personally really enjoyed that. I think that we learned so much information. I think it's great. So remember, one more little tiny review. For a hurricane to happen, we need moisture, but we also need warmth, okay? That's why in the Arctic, there's not hurricanes, because it's too cold there. Dangerous elements that a hurricane can produce. Here's a hurricane, some effects of that: tornadoes, storm surges, flooding, mudslides. All of those can have their own problems too. And I think the author did a really good job adding photos and adding those maps to really, and those like the graphs of the strengths of the hurricanes to just show us some extra information. So I'm glad the author of this story decided to do that. And I hope you guys really enjoyed this story. So now that we have finished this story, you are going to do your 5-question comprehension quiz. As always, it is multiple choice. Let me share this tab instead. So this is mine, but this is what it's called: Selection Kit Quiz, Hurricane, and the Science Behind Killer Storms. That is your selection quiz. You will take that, okay? And then after you take the 5-question quiz, you are going to go to Reading Google Classroom, and you're going to take the 8-question vocabulary quiz. And then that's it for reading today. After you finish your quiz, if we're at school today, after you finish both quizzes, if we are at school today, the snow wasn't as bad as they said, you should be reading until it is time for reading RTI. If we are not at school today and you just finish your reading, go you. It is important to read for at least 20 minutes. If you have a question, feel free to email me. Remember, Miss Parrish is an actual teacher, and she is willing and ready to help you if you have questions. Remember, you may use your story. Please use your story to help you on your quizzes. I hope you guys do a fabulous job.